In this video, we're going to take a look at another modifier. We've looked at a couple of modifiers along the way to help us get some things done as we learn Blender, and we will have an entire section devoted to Blender's modifiers. But there are a few that we've wanted to learn along the way to help us out and that get used quite often. This time we're going to look at the one that gets used possibly more often than any other, and that's the Subsurface modifier. Most people just say Subsurf for short. I've got my cube and I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'm going to hit W to subdivide my mesh, which is not the same as the modifier. The Subsurf modifier will actually shape my geometry, whereas subdividing simply cuts my geometry up. If I now go over to my modifiers panel and go down to Generate Subdivision Surface, we'll see what happens. We now see the cage of our old geometry, but the effects of our Subsurface modifier. The Subsurface modifier basically smooths out and cuts up our mesh and tries to make it as smooth as it potentially can. It defaults to a view of 1 and a render of 2. If we up our view 1, we can see how it continues that smoothing operation. There's a couple things we can do that will help to make modeling with a Subsurf modifier a little bit easier. First of all, we can turn it on and off with this little eye icon. At least we can turn off the visibility of it. Also, over here in this triangle, we can edit the cage. And editing the cage just basically means we will collapse the cage to match the Subsurf modifier. So if we press that, we now have this cage. Subsurf modifiers are very handy in that they will, in real time, adjust for any changes you make to your geometry. So if we were to go to face mode and select a face and extrude that upwards, our modifier is going to calculate that in real time. There we go, a peace sign, if you will. Now, there are a couple of other things to know. One is, we can always get rid of our modifier by using the X key. However, all of our other operations, in this case several extrusions, do remain. They were not part of the modifier, they were part of the geometry. If we tab back into edit mode, we can still apply our subdivision modifier. I'm sorry, I said edit mode, I meant object mode. And also in object mode, you see we no longer have a cage. That is reserved for editing. You're going to use this quite a bit. So spend quite a bit of time just playing around with it and seeing what happens. The more you know this particular modifier, the more powerful your modeling capabilities will become. And I'll see you in the next video.